Okay, basically for today's class, I had planned to discuss the case study. So to start with, how many of you have got a chance to at least read the case study? How many of you have got a chance to read the case study? So I will run you through the case study based on whether you all have read it, and I can also run you through the case study even if you have not read it, because by now I almost know it by heart, having done that case study so many times. Anybody who's attending today who has read the case study? Okay. So I am moving with the premise that no one has read the case study, and accordingly I will give you a little background of what the case study is, and then I will talk about the questions and how it is supposed to be answered, and what kind of inputs you will be required to give to complete that assignment, and what could be the takeaway or the learning from that. Okay, so assuming no one has read the case study so far. Okay, before I move ahead with specifically this case study, a little feedback on the third assignment. The mathematics was pretty straightforward and everybody has been able to do that very easily. On the analysis side, many people have not tried to give a BCG quadrant to each of those brands, probably because that is one confusion that tends to stay always, which is that if there are four quadrants, everyone likes to fit in the four quadrants. But as I had explained during the class as well as in the notes, in the particular data that I had given to you, your market growth rate is a very high one, 87% and 125%. So it's a consistently high market growth domain, which means that only stars and question marks are where the individual company products operating in that particular segment lie. There is no cash cow and there is no dog. So if you've got higher market share, which is anywhere in double digits, then you could say you're moving towards a star. And if you've got low, you can put it as a question mark. Now, if you look at the matrix in itself, if you look at this matrix in itself, within stars, you could, sound clear now? Is the sound okay? Hello? Okay. So, if you look here, the quadrant of star and question mark is reasonably large. So within stars also, market share on a lower side and market share on a higher side is there. So the analysis per se for the BCG is to see that whether you are very comfortably into the star domain or you're hovering between question mark and star. And basically the analysis helps you in focusing on certain marketing decisions as to how do you or so higher market share will tell you how much you are driving the market, and an X number of people only buy a product simply because it holds the largest market share. So having higher market share in itself is a driver for a reasonable amount of sales, and sustaining it at that level then becomes the question. Whereas for a question mark, you need to pump in more money to move into the star category and then sustain yourself. And so these decisions become relevant depending on where in the quadrant you are lying and where you want to reach. Uh, so that was the analysis part over there. A little bit more on that. Uh, the BCG matrix and this market share, market growth rate thing is a reasonably important thing to keep an eye on always, because there are huge number of critical marketing decisions that you tend to take there, and some of those marketing decisions can also be to the extent of whether you even want to fund a question mark and try to make it a star, or you take a conscious decision that this question mark is not going to work, and rather than pumping money into it any longer, let's just try to curtail it down. In fact, for that reason is probably why you're seeing a little bit of incoherence with the admin team currently, because the online marketing online piece of Sunstone is going through that very decision currently to see how much money should be pumped in to remain in the relevant zone. So I took that example because online education per se is the future that everybody is seeing. Education as a commercial enterprise is something which has always attracted people, and yet there is hardly any instance of anybody who has generated a profit margin out of being in the online education so far. So it's highly dependent upon funding. Sunstone is that rare case where they have achieved an operating break even, but still that operating break even requires a reasonable amount of upfront spends, and it's important to therefore reconsider whether it's worthwhile for faculty who are very high priced and busy people to devote so much time into this without any remuneration sort of, with the hope that they're building up that organization, but is that visibility really there for those kind of numbers? So somewhere or the other that feeling does come that the Indian market for online is still not very, uh, you could say, mature enough, and therefore, it still seems to operate in a domain where everybody believes that online is something either very cheap or free. So whatever kind of money one charges online is still considered reasonably high, whereas the same thing done offline, uh, will cost 5 to 10 times more, and still people may not mind it, because that's the kind of paradigm that we hold in this country. So that's how the BCG matrix becomes very important, month to month, year to year, to keep seeing where you stand, where your competitors stand, and even if you are a star, whether it's worthwhile to hold on to that kind of market share, and whether you're a question mark, you want to hold on to that. So that's the kind of decisions that are required. Any questions on that? I can take that first before I move on to the Dakota case. Okay. So we'll go on to the Great Dakota case. So just to give certain points about what it is, what is the case study? So the setting is roughly 2 decades back, and very, very early stages for internet penetration. It is based out of a US case, and the setting therefore is the United States. And there is this bank, which is the Great Dakota Bank, which has invested into internet accessibility and all those things which are common today for how bank accounts can be run. And therefore, they have developed a department which will look at marketing of their online piece. So that is the setting of the case study. There is a lot of data over there which talks about history of offline customers. Then there is data which talks about the satisfaction and dissatisfaction with new online product. And then the case study also gives you a rundown of what are the kind of sales or customer numbers that you are achieving with respect to the campaign that has been done. So as far as the questions are concerned, you have to find out the CAC and the CLV with appropriate assumptions, and then assuming you had the chance to redesign the campaign, what would you do? So basically this is around what the case study is about. Can someone tell me what is the formula for CLV that we put? What is the formula for CLV? Yes. So M margin per annum star L lifespan of customer association minus CAC customer acquisition. So first part is to find CAC, customer acquisition cost, equal to all costs spent for acquisition divided by total number of customers. Okay, so for the acquisition cost, they have given a 2 million uh, marketing budget source or advertising something budget. Then they've talked about some sweepstakes, etc. So when you look at these things, you have to first differentiate on what are the actual costs. Okay, so there are some freebies, discounts, etc. All these things. So whenever you are doing this, you have to note, take actual spend only, not notional loss or opportunity cost. So for CAC, you take only actual spend. So you can make the following assumptions. 2 million spent on advertising, or you can even say 2 million is the total which is spent on advertising, marketing, people salaries, up marketing, travel, communication, all marketing operational costs. So we can say that 2 million included this. Then as far as the freebies are concerned, we can talk of, so if they say that, okay, let me take that example. Suppose $5 per month is charges for viewing account on internet, and for new customers this charge is waived off for 6 months. So what is the cost that is spent by the, what is the cost spent by the bank? So $5 per month is charged for viewing the account on internet, and for new customers this charge is waived off for 6 months. So what is the cost spent by the bank? Answers please. What is the cost spent by the bank? Yeah, cost spent by the bank per new customer. So Sham has given an answer of $30. Anybody has a different answer? Anybody has any different answer? Okay, so this is incorrect, and this is something I had explained in the last class itself. And again, things that are generally what tends to go wrong because we are unable to come out of our old paradigms. This is the money that the bank could collect if it charged the customer. Actual cost of bank allow viewing of account could be as low as 5 cents per month. So there is some amount that there is some operations cost for anything that is happening. So on the internet also, if someone is going to log into your system and check something, there must be some cost, however low it is. Okay. So you all are the IT guys here. You'll probably be able to tell me if we remove the fixed cost of putting the LMS and all together, or putting that whole system of the bank together. If someone has to come online and just view their account, it may still be costing 1 or 2 paisa for the people who maintain that whole system, or maybe the electricity that gets spent, or maybe the server cost that you give for the data, or whatever. So there is some operational cost for that. Uh, okay, I'll make it a little more clear. This is a service, but suppose there is a product. So uh, you have a scheme, buy one, get one free, and cost of the shirt is 200 rupees, while selling price is 1000 rupees. Okay, so if you look at the acquisition cost, okay, let's look from the customer side. Customer paid 1000 and got worth 2000 as perceived by customers. Retailer or shirt seller got 1000 and gave material worth 400. Okay, so if you use the same thing on top, the customer got a waiver for 6 months for something where the perceived cost for the customer was $30. So as far as the customer is concerned, he saved $30. But there is some cost for what that customer is asking for a service for the bank to give that service. And that service may be very, very low. That cost of that service may be very, very low. So in the service domain, you have this very big advantage that you have this Reliance Geo and all these things happening right now. So if someone gives you 1000 free SMS, the perceived value to the customer is almost 1000 rupees, assuming that 1 rupee per SMS is there. But the cost of servicing that SMS by the company could be as low as 2 paisa or 1 paisa. So effectively that 1000 SMS, even if completely utilized, may only cost the service provider just 10 rupees. Is that clear now, or is there some confusion? So when we are calculating customer acquisition cost, we are calculating the actual spend by the company to acquire the customer. In this case, the bank, what it is spending. So one is the advertising and the marketing department, specifically their salaries, travel and all those things. And the other is those freebies and discounts and other things that they have put, in which one should consider only the actual money outflow of the bank to service those freebies or discounts, but not the potential earning that they could have got. That's not a cost. So if we have a class here, and if two students are allowed free with four other students to, or we say that if there are five students who come together, then we will charge for only four. That fifth student actually is not a cost. It's just that we are getting revenue for four, but the actual operational cost for one additional student is not much. So if you look at actual operational cost for an additional student, maybe you will pay some money for the assignment checking. Maybe you will pay, some allocate some money for the the administration work of giving sending out mails and this and that. But other than that, all the other parts, which is faculty taking a class, the WebEx system or the GoToMeeting system or whatever, all those are fixed costs which will be incurred whether or not that extra student is there. So acquisition cost is only that minimal extra money that is actually spent. Otherwise you can just assume that you're operating with four students from whom you've got that dollar. Okay. Yes. So in this case, we can assume cost by spent by bank could I be actually very, very low, just maybe just $1 also. That's the correct answer. So whatever you assume, you can put there. Logic should be correct. It can be $1 or $5 or whatever, but logic should be correct. Okay, so that's an important thing that you have to consider when you take the acquisition cost. And in this, it is again a very important thing to understand that freebies given therefore of services or products of the company itself are actually the cheapest acquisition spends. Okay, clear? So this is as far as the CAC is concerned. After that, we'll come to the CLV. So for CLV, there is an M, there is an L minus CAC. So CAC you already calculated. Now for margin, figures already given in table in case study. Okay, so the margins are already given there and you can take that figure of M. As far as the case study is concerned, it has also categorized customers in A, B, and C, depending on who gives what kind of margins. So actually this kind of analysis helps to know that so if you calculate a separate CLV for each of these types, you could come with an answer where certain type of customers are a loss to the organization and better to be avoided. So there are certain type of customers for whom the acquisition cost tends to get high and yet the recovery is very low because they hardly use anything except free stuff. So it is better to avoid such customers. Okay. Anyway, so you can take an average of all that given in the table, or you can simply take certain figures that are given in the case study. Now comes L. It is lifespan of customer association. Now there are various methods to do this. So one is churn rate. Can someone give me an idea of what they understand by the word churn? Okay, so how do what do you understand by the word churn? Yeah, so churn is something that you use to make butter, and you will also see a churning machine a lot of times in the cement. Wherever you see this construction happening, there is a big drum which keeps running, and it keep mixing the various constituents of the cement. And from one side, the raw material keeps going in, and from the other side, you have the uh, Lakshmi Narayan, your screen seems to have come. Hello, Lakshmi Narayan. I think your screen is coming here. Uh, Lakshmi Narayan. Okay. Can everyone see my screen again? Okay. So churn is what you see on those cement machines also. And the basic meaning of that churn is that some amount of input and exit keeps happening. So we are saying that some number of customers keep getting replaced. So to keep it simple, let's say there are 10 customers and we say the next year also there are 10, but the churn is 2, which means 2 new ones came in and 2 old ones left. So if we take a very simple assumption that every year 2 of the old ones will go and 2 new ones will come, then we can say that for all those 10 to completely go from the system, it will take 5 years. So we can assume that 5 is the lifespan, because every time 2 new customers have also come, so the average becomes 5. There are some customers who keep staying for 5 years. Okay. Are you getting my answer? So the first year there were 10. The next year there were 8 old and 2 new. So there were 8 who have started their second year, while there are 2 who have started their first year. By the time you reach the fifth year, you have all the old ones which have left. So you have someone who's done 5 years, someone who's done 4 years, someone who's done 3 years, and there are again new ones who have come and who've done 3, 4 or 2 years. So a simplistic way of looking at it is that 1 upon churn rate is equal to L. Okay, so that is one method. The second is historical data, which in this case study I think they have given 9.3 years as an average lifespan of customer. And then you can also have your own estimate. So since online as a product has no geography limitations, so one can also assume that lifespan will be at least 50 to 60% higher than the average of offline customers. So this is quite natural. If you see now, all those bank accounts which we had, which we always ran offline, have made us multiply our bank accounts with respect to every company we changed or every geographical boundary we changed. But as the online way of managing the account has come, everybody has started reducing their number of accounts, because that one account gets linked everywhere, be it your credit card or your income tax or wherever, and therefore wherever in the world you may be, you tend to work through internet banking and try to operate the account from the net. So automatically the lifespan will go up. So if you use, so by this it will be roughly 15 years. Now the question that comes is that if there are three different methods we are seeing here, I think they have given churn rate as 20%. So L is equal to 5. So there are three ways I have given here, where you could have L of 5, then you could have 9.3, and then you could have 15. Which means that effectively the CLV can grow by twice or three times based on which kind of churn rate method, which kind of L method you use, because L has a huge bearing. And that is where you have to now understand from a practical perspective. So when you actually go to the corporate to work, you are going to be on two sides of the table. Either you are going to be presenting your marketing budgets and the logic behind that, or you're going to be hearing the marketing budget from somebody and sanctioning or being party to understanding what kind of costs are going into it. So understanding this kind of depth into this will help, because if you're the one presenting, you could go for your own estimate and justify why you can ask for a huge marketing budget. Whereas if you're on the other side of the table, you could negotiate a much lower expected L and therefore make it more realistic. So effectively, if I put it like that, in marketing, there's just too much of uncertainty. And on paper, people end up putting anything and justifying anything. And end result thereafter is only known when actual customers come and all that happens. If you actually deliver as per your plans, is when you are considered very successful, because that's the only success part in marketing, whether you can actually estimate and deliver according to that. But 9 out of 10 people get away by even having every time a failure from what they have predicted, because it's just accepted that all their logics were okay and yet the outcome did not happen. So that's how it actually works on the ground. So any questions anybody has on this? Okay, so you have, by this you can find out the CAC and CLV, and last part is how you would plan the campaign and its budget. So based on your new budget, you can show a new CAC and CLV. So that's how you do it. Primarily, everything boils down to CAC and CLV, and in the current uh, on ground marketing that's happening in any organization, people will only talk to you about CAC and CLV, and based on that, you can uh, justify whatever budgets you're asking for. Okay, from CLV, how will you calculate a marketing budget? From CAC and CLV, how will you calculate a marketing budget? Okay, now that you've got all the data, you got all the inputs, can you tell me from CAC and CLV how will you calculate a marketing budget? Okay, anybody? From CAC and CLV, how will you calculate a marketing budget? Okay, so basic objective. Okay, so Kaustubh has given one answer here. Okay, if CAC is less than 50% of CLV, it is assumed to be good. Yes. So you could take this as your assumption, and therefore, if you are saying that CLV is equal to X, then CAC is equal to 0.5X. Okay. Uh, okay, you are aware of the figures of M and L. So you have estimated marginal contribution and lifespan. You are good. Or you have existing data. Okay, so M and L is what you would get. CLV and CAC is what you will know, and from that you can therefore take out the marketing budget. So what is your marketing budget? Marketing budget is equal to total number of converted customers into acquisition cost per customer. Okay, so this is how you can do it. In actual terms, even if CLV is equal to CAC, it is okay as there is no loss. So you can take an assumption of how much you want to keep it as a percentage of CAC, and accordingly you can create a marketing budget. So this was as far as the Great Dakota case study goes. I can now take any questions that you have from any part of the marketing course or anything outside the marketing course if you want to discuss. Yeah, so I can now take any questions that anybody wants to take. So Sham has asked this question, and so any of you who wants to give an answer to this, because I believe I have covered it in this course. Does anybody want to give an answer to this? Okay, Sham. So, communication and advertising, or rather, I'll say communication oblique advertising, is only one part of marketing. Okay, go back to the basic marketing model. You have a seller, buyer, a product, and service which is given, and then you have money given back. Then there is marketing information, and there is a feedback from the customers. So, what are the other pieces? So, one is identifying the right target audience for the product. Okay. Second is creating the value proposition for the target audience to derive the value. Competing products. Third is reaching out, which is communication oblique advertising. Reaching out, which is awareness and education. Then you have the sales process. Four is sales process, actual conversion from lead. So you have this funnel which starts from lead gen and ends in conversion. And then you have after sales service to get to ensure that value is provided and new customers keep coming in, generate more repeat sales and so that's the entire perspective of marketing. Have I answered you, Alok? Okay. Anybody else has any question? Yes, Alok, sales is a very much a subset of marketing. Unfortunately, one of my sessions got curtailed. Otherwise, I used to take one specific section only on sales part. But I can cover it a little bit to show you what it is. Since you have asked this question, I will just do that. Okay, so can everyone see this presentation? Okay, so this is one of the sessions which I don't take now because it had got curtailed in the time allowed to me. But I'll quickly run you through it slightly. So basically, when we look at sales management, we consider it separately because there are three very important parameters again. A corporate objective is to increase profit. A marketing objective is to increase market share, whereas a sales objective is to increase sales. Now, it's an important discussion you've picked up, and I'm glad because it is important to understand the difference in marketing and sales. Marketing is overall the whole perspective, including sales, and sales is a subset. And yet, sales is a different department many times because both of them have different objectives. Now, sales is about increasing sales, which means getting the revenue in, and it is a short term objective. So, salespeople will always talk about somehow getting the revenue, giving a discount, giving whatever, but selling, even if it is false promises at times. Whereas a marketing fellow wants to look at it long term, which is increasing market share. This is also the reason why it is generally said that one should go in sales first before going into marketing. Because unless you understand how to really convert a customer at the end and what it takes to get the money out of the pocket of the customer, only talking about big things and advertising and everything on the marketing side is not very worthwhile. So there is always a sense of stress that happens between marketing and sales people because the sales guy says that it's very easy to go around spending money on advertising and everything, but it's very difficult to actually convert a customer and get revenue out. So if people who have been in sales first and then move to marketing, they understand this part very well and can coordinate and understand how sales also happen. So these three things, they look to be aligned, but they are very different. So increasing sales does not mean that profit will increase or market share will increase. So we've already seen market growth rate, market share, and sales growth rate. So market share could go up and down independent of whether your sales goes up and down because it depends also on the market growth rate, which means only if sales growth rate is equal to or greater than the market growth rate, then the market share will increase. So overall, it's a marketing objective, which is increasing market share. Sales fellow looks at it in a short perspective only, and that's why it's called the last mile of marketing. And the corporate, on the other hand, including the finance and the board and everybody, they are interested in the profitability of the organization. Three different conceptual things. If you look at the sales in itself, you have from generating leads in, so we'll talk of digital marketing nowadays. You don't follow this entire channel, which is more traditional. It is more or less the same approach, uh, packaged differently in the name of digital marketing. And now instead of prospecting, we say we are generating leads, which is what are the people who could buy. And then there is an engagement process, which is sending those emailers and doing the telecalls and all those sort of stuff. And then finally the conversion at the end. So we say percentage conversion, and online nowadays is like 1% percentage conversion from the leads and so on. But if we go into this little more in detail, so when you talk of lead generation, there are two parts. One is finding for customers, and the other one which I have tended to put there, you won't find it in the books and materials, which is being found. So you're having your website and you're putting your stuff in places that people will tend to see it and therefore will find you. So internet especially is an important way of getting found by someone who needs it. They will put Google their need, and googling their need should be able to get you over there and they can find you, which is where you go to the concept nowadays of search engine optimization. So that's lead gen. uh, Now this is a traditional part, so I'll just explain it to you. Maybe it'll help, because many times we tend to uh, believe that how it's packaged now is the whole thing, and we tend to forget the reasons why all these theories were put together. So when you generate leads, important thing is how do you segregate the leads which will actually convert and which will not convert. The importance of doing that is that sales is a pretty costly process. Every time you do a telecall, every time you follow up somebody, every time you put it on a some sort of lead management software, and all that is a very costly process. You have a telecallers, you have sales personnel, you have sales managers, and a humongous amount of money goes there. Now if you're not segregating the people who are getting cold quickly, you are ending up only multiplying your cost without getting an output. And unfortunately, I see this happening all around, with nobody trying to segregate and close out leads which are not responding. Whereas if anybody goes through the proper conceptual way of doing the marketing from the start, they'll understand that the pre-approach part was basically segregating the leads at the very beginning and ensuring that you don't end up having too much of a sales cost from those leads where the expected possibility of a conversion has fallen below 50%. So if there's less than 50-50 chance for anyone to be converted, it is better to leave that customer alone rather than keep doing a process. Then you have the approach, which is actually meeting people, doing your presentation. Then you have your USP and other things. Uh, Objection handling is quite interesting. We call it objection handling because a customer is basically, when he has to take out the money, he is trying to find reasons of why he should not buy and raising certain objections. Those objections have to be around the product or the service, and therefore they can only be related to five things, which is price, quality, payment terms, after sales service, and the timing to buy. But in actual, the customer, when they start talking about these things, it is only an indicator that now you're on the final leg. You can close and you can get the commitment in terms of an advance or a payment or whatever. And so a good salesperson doesn't answer generally according to the question, but only answers to create more credibility. So especially if you go to see cloth, buying anything which is of cloth, a shirt or something, and you say quality doesn't look very good, the fellow is going to, tell you, see this, try to touch it, see, I'll show you a cheaper stuff. So they're only trying to, reaffirm your decision and not really talking about quality being good, bad, or something. So that's the interesting part over here. and then you get the commitment somehow, because if you don't get the commitment when the iron is hot, then you go back to zero again. So if you have reached a shop, you end up not buying and saying I'll come back tomorrow, then that tomorrow never comes. And even if it comes again, you start from the demonstration all over again and go to the very end. And then comes the CRM part, which is the after sales service. And this is where the baton gets handed back to marketing. So customer relationship management is also part of marketing. Lead generation is also very much or primarily a marketing domain. So if you go back to this thing, the prospecting is very much a marketing thing. From here, the leads are passed on to sales, who segregate and do it till closing, reach the follow up, and then pass it back to marketing. So that's how the baton flows in and out from marketing. Okay, Sham, I think I've given you a reasonably good perspective now of marketing and covered that piece also. Uh, I will put this presentation on the LMS for those who would want to see it. Okay, anybody else has any question that I can take up? Okay, then I guess we're done for the day. As I said, you have a week's time to complete this case study and upload it. In case for any reason it doesn't get taken on the LMS, you can directly mail it to me and I will grade it accordingly. Other than that, if anybody wants to connect with me through mail or WhatsApp or anything, feel free to do so. And anytime you want any input with respect to the marketing domain or anywhere I can help, feel free to connect. Yes, I am based in Ghaziabad and our campuses are in Greater Noida. Welcome, Sham, anytime. Feel free to connect. Okay, so thanks a lot and good night.